Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. I am going to be sharing with you some poses and some strengthening exercises you can do to support your knee. Now, I'm designing this specifically with someone in mind. However, I want it to be accessible for everybody and usable by everybody. So I'm going to upload it to the YouTube channel so that you can reference it at any time. What I would like you to do also is not treat it like a sequence from start to finish, but rather as things you can incorporate into your current sequence or your current exercise stretching routine that you have. I'm filming at my house, which for those who have watched other videos, the studio sometimes has a little better internet. So if it doesn't quite have that same pixelation or whatever it is, just bear with me. So it's a rainy day and I'm in the middle of a lot of work today, so I wanted to try to get this in this afternoon so I can send it to the person who I promised it to. All right, so let's get started. Now, obviously the way I'm sitting might not work very well for somebody with bad knees. So sitting this way probably wasn't the best example, but I'm gonna start with this so that you can see some ways to modify, adapt how I'm sitting. So if you're sitting cross-legged and you have some knee issues, whether it be former injuries, tightness, whatever it is, you have some options. You can sit with some blocks underneath your knees. Right away, I feel a total relief in any pressure that I had on my knees, and I don't have a history of bad knees. Maybe a ski injury on one knee that makes it a little looser than it should be sometimes, but otherwise nothing real serious. But I feel relief with here. So if you have knee injuries, this is definitely going to be a good option for you if you're sitting cross-legged. Now, another option when sitting cross-legged, you can see this blanket here, is to sit up. Elevate yourself a little bit. Now, that's a little bit better on my knees as well. Something else that you can use a strap for, if you have to, let's say you're going to a conference. This makes the most sense if you're going to a yoga conference because, well, you probably have props, things around there. But maybe you're at your house and you just like to sit on the floor or whatever it might be. This is an option for you. So this is something that supports, I took this yoga strap and I put it around my knees. And now I can make this bigger and have it, have my knees drop a little lower to the ground. I'm still seated up like this. This is a nice way to support the knees, similar to how we had the block underneath. So those are some options when you're sitting this way. All right, let's move on to the next seated pose I'd like to show you. And if I reference my material over here, it's just because I want to make sure that I don't miss anything that I intended to share. Okay, so now my legs are out in what we call Dandasana. And in fact, I'm going to move to the side so you can better see that. So Dandasana is this nice straight-legged pose. Toes are flexed towards me. Hands are resting on the ground. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to contract and squeeze the quad muscles. This is going to help strengthen the muscles around the patella. That's that little kneecap on your knees. And it's just going to help bring awareness to the movement there and then relax. So that's one thing you can do to help strengthen. Kind of simple, kind of easy. Seems like we should have more advanced things, and we will have a few more advanced things, but sometimes it's as simple as that, just strengthening and supporting the muscles around. Now, one thing I want to note, if you do have a lot of injury to a knee, or you feel it kind of popping and cracking a lot, or you hear it snapping a lot, it might be worth wearing a sleeve around that knee. Somebody described it, or rather a book described it this way. They said the tendons and the ligaments and all the structure in the knee and the muscles, everything, think of it like a slinky coiled up. And every time you use that slinky, if you're gentle with it and you play with it and you move it up and down, it goes right back to the shape that it was. But if you let your 3-year-old niece play with it, she stretches it out, whatever happens, eventually that slinky doesn't quite go back to the size it was. It maybe still has the same general function of a slinky, but it's just a little looser. So think about that with your knee too. If it's had a lot of injury or challenges with it, it may need to just have that support. So a sleeve around it when you're doing things. Okay, now staying in that Dandasana, one way to help strengthen your knees is to take a block, one yoga block, you bring it between your thighs. Now you want it to be, I'm going to stand up to show this, you want it to be a couple of inches above your kneecap, okay? And depending on the length of your knee, if you need to shift it sideways, whatever works for you. And then you're going to take that strap and you're going to wrap the strap around the bottom, around your shins. And you want this to be about, okay, stand up again. You want this to be about 3 to 4 inches below the kneecap, okay? So basically, you just don't want it on top of the kneecap or too far down. So sit back down here again. So bring that block between my legs here. Bring that strap around the lower part of my legs. And then the toes are going to flex towards me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze in on the block. I'm going to push out against the strap. Now, the first time you do it, you'll feel if you need to adjust. So the strap was a little loose there. So now I'm going to do it again. Squeeze in with those inner thigh muscles against the block and push out against the straps, keeping my toes flexed towards me, and then relax. And I would just suggest doing this maybe 5 times in a row, and that just helps to strengthen the knee muscles, the muscles around the knee, I should say. All right, now another option. So if we're trying to support the knee, we want to keep the hamstrings stretched, the quads, the glutes. We want to work all of those muscles. And we're going to do a couple of things that specifically work those. But one thing to do is to think about stretching also. So you could forward fold. That would stretch out the back of those legs. If you have a little too much pain, you could bring, this is a rolled up mat. You could do a blanket, anything. You could bring that underneath and stretch. And then that's going to give a little bend to the knee, but still stretch the back of the hamstrings. And you can come into the stretch however you want. You know, inhale your hands up, exhale, forward fold. Or if you have shoulder issues, you could slide your arms forward and just come in this way. So that's one way to stretch the hamstrings out. Another option for you to do is to bring, we'll start with the left side. So I'm going to bring the left foot in. And you could do a block underneath this knee. Certainly do that. You can also do a strap around that knee. That just helps to support as well. So this is something that you can do to help stretch the back of the leg, and this is a way of supporting that. So same thing, you're going to forward fold. And if you practice with me on a regular basis, we always do this in the beginning. It's just a nice way to stretch. And I'll usually mention then to grab a block and bring it under your knee if you need that. And then come back up. And now let's do the other side. Again, if you want that strap wrapped around the knee, that's fine. Maybe bring the block, whatever works, and then forward folding. So just getting a good stretch behind the leg. And you can feel this behind the knee as well. There we go. All right, now, one more thing while we're seated, and then we're going to come to standing. Do a couple things there, and then I'm going to show you a couple things back down on the ground. Okay, so here is the next one. So this is a pose that is, as you see me set up, you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, I can't do that, my knees hurt too bad. So this is a pose that can be kind of painful on your knees if you have some issues. So I want you to be mindful with this pose. I'm going to move this so that, take this off so you can see nothing's getting in your way here. So be mindful of this pose, go into it slowly, ease yourself, and use some support. Okay, so this is the full version. I'm just sitting on my heels, sinking in. Now, this is a great stretch for the knees, but if you can't come into this, which I suspect a lot of people having knee issues can't come into it, you can have options. So you can bring a couple of blocks. If you only have one block, you can bring a blanket, you can bring some other support, but you could bring whatever you want and then sit on that. So that's going to help stretch those knees as well. Now, I have worked with this pose with my dad before, and he has really muscular calves, and it hurts him because of that. So I usually suggest that he have a blanket. Sometimes he'll pull, demonstrate that, pull a blanket and just kind of set it here. And that feels a little better for him. Or you can bring the blanket between, just like we did the blocks, and set there. It's all about just building it up for what works for you. But it's a great way to support those knees. It stretches, like I mentioned. It also helps bring some vascular circulation around. There's not a lot of blood flow goes to certain parts of the knee, which is why they're so challenging to heal on their own. So if we can bring some circulation in there, then that's going to help support and bring healing if you have some prior injuries, things like that. All right, now I'm going to come to standing and demonstrate a couple of things. So first we're going to use this stool here. Now you can use a table or a chair, but what you want is your feet to be able to dangle. Now this has a strap right here, or a bar right there, which isn't ideal for what I'm going to show you. Apologize, the house phone's ringing in the background. It is getting into campaign season, so our house phone rings nonstop. Okay, so you want to be able to dangle your feet here, and then you cross your ankles. And what you want to do is you want to be able to swing your feet back. Now, I'm going to have to lift them up to show because that bar is across. And then slowly extend them out. And do this a few times each side, and then you would switch. And again, ideally you don't have this bar there. I just couldn't find something to sit on when I realized I wanted to do this one. I would have spent another half hour searching. So go ahead, you can do that a couple times again, switch it out. You can sit on a table, a counter, anything so that you can swing your legs back and then swing them forward, but nice and slow. It's not like on a swing where you're pumping your legs back and forth. All right, let's move this out of the way. Okay, next one. Let's do a few standing poses. Okay, so we have, I'm going to turn this page just so I can see. All right, so we have our traditional mountain pose, Tadasana. Now, one way to help strengthen the knee is to bring a block, same as we did on the floor. So bringing a block between your thighs here, above the knee, and then you want to stand nice and tall. Now in Tadasana, I like to remind people to really ground into your feet. So make sure you're feeling the space, the floor underneath the entire span of that foot. So it's like you're spreading your toes apart and trying to touch each bit of your foot to the ground. And then allow that to travel up. And when it gets to your quads, you want to squeeze them in. Just feel that block. And now one thing that I will try to do as well is to rotate those upper leg bones in. So I'm just kind of feeling it right now, playing with it as I demonstrate and talk about it. So rotating them in and just see how it feels. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. But just to bring strength to those knees, and then allow yourself to hold the rest of Tadasana. So bringing that grounding to your hips, your pelvis, and then standing nice and tall, shoulders back, head neutral, so chin at 90 degrees, not tucked, not too high, palms open if that's comfortable, arms extended down. So that is a variation there. And then I usually recommend you take the block away, come back to Tadasana, and see if you can, again, squeeze those legs like there is a block there. So imagine you're pulling them in together. Now this generally feels a little easier when I mentioned before to rotate the upper leg bones in. It kind of feels like you're opening up that tailbone. You can feel that better without the block, just so you're aware. So do that a few times. Feel the difference between standing or with the block and without. Okay, so now the next variation that I want you to do is I want you to work on Utkatasana. So I'm going to stand sideways here so that you can better see. And now I'm having my feet hip distance apart. If you watch me practice, I often have my toes together when I'm doing a vinyasa flow, but for this purpose, I'm going to keep them hip distance apart. Now, if you are trying to add in strengthening exercises for your knee, just general squats are going to be very helpful, or even doing a wall sit. That's going to be a great way to strengthen. Just be mindful and do them correctly. I'll even often have people use a chair to do the squats just to make sure that they're really doing them in a safe manner. But if we're going to do more of a yoga pose here, let's do Utkatasana, which is basically a squat. So we want to sink our hips back, trying to keep our knees stacked above the ankle, and then I'm going to bring my arms up. So here's Utkatasana, and then what I might do is just come to standing and then back to Utkatasana a few times, kind of like doing squats basically. So just bringing that yoga version in, and now I'm going to show you another way to further stretch. Now listen to your body again. We're all at different levels when we're practicing or when we're trying to strengthen, we're doing exercise during the day. So listen to if this works for you. I'm not even sure that I can fully do it. So we're going to come into Utkatasana, and then the other option is to sink all the way down. And then rise back up to Utkatasana, and then rise all the way back up to standing. If you do that a few times, you definitely feel it. I could feel it just doing it once. So again, one more time to demonstrate. Come into Utkatasana, sink down all the way. You have to be mindful because it's very easy to fall over here. And then rise back up to Utkatasana and rise all the way back up to standing, hands to the side. All right, let me move this. Okay, another way to strengthen the knees using yoga poses. I'm going to stand mountain pose again, feet hip distance apart, hands at my waist. I'm going to walk the right foot back, and I'm going to come into this little bit of a lunge here, okay? Oops, losing my balance here. So stay in your lunge, don't lose your balance like I just did. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go from bent knee to straight leg. Bent knee, straight leg. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to extend the knee past the toes. So if I need, I'm going to create a little more space there. So I'm going to walk those toes up, come back to bent knee, straight leg. Bent knee, straight leg. You can do this a couple times each side. So we'll go to the other side just for balance. So bent knee, straight leg. And if you want to challenge yourself, you could bring your arms up. And again, if you need to create a little more distance, go ahead and do that. Whatever works. Now, there's lots of poses in yoga that help to strengthen the knee. So the last one that I'm going to show you standing is triangle pose. So you can bring your feet wide. What I like to do here is just kind of gauge it. So my feet are about one leg distance apart, arms are out to T. Then you'll turn one side towards the right, or whichever direction that is. So my right foot's going to turn towards the right. I'm going to hinge at that hip and bring that hand down and the other hand up. Now this one may not feel like it's specifically targeting the knee, but it's just a good overall stretch and strengthener for the whole body. Now one thing you can do with this pose also, so I come out of it, and watch also, your hand could rest on your leg here, it could rest on a block, or it could reach all the way down. So one thing that I will do with this pose is come back up, arms out to T, and then I'll bend into warrior two, just a little one here, keeping that knee open to the pinky, and that's going to strengthen that inner thigh here, and then come back. And you can do that a few times, actually, bending into that warrior two, just like we did in that lunge. Now I'm going to turn those right toes in and turn the left toes out. And then, oops, I was going to bend into that. First, I want to come down into Trikonasana. And then again, same thing, you could bend, and then straighten, bend, and straighten. Now remember, I'm not setting these up in a sequence. It kind of looks like a sequence because it's just in my nature to do so, but these are meant to be done individually, thrown into other practice, whatever works for you. All right, I'm going to bring my feet back together, and now I'm going to lower down to the ground. So I'm just going to come down to the ground, scooting around, moving this stuff away, and I'm going to lower all the way down. One, if you like to work your core, or if you're trying to strengthen your knees, get a workout in, do it all at one time, you could do boat pose and Squeeze those quads just like we did in that Dandasana, this one, just like we squeezed those there. You could do that in boat pose as well. So just activating those quads, strengthening there. So now the other option, or another variation here. So I'm going to lower all the way down like a bridge pose. I'm going to bring the block between my knees. Arms are going to be extended, palms pressing down, and then I'm going to lift that core up and squeeze into that block. Now remember, I'm going to lower down to show something. The block has 3 different levels. You have this level, you have this level, and then you have this level. So whatever works for you, that's the level you should use. So pressing in with those knees, lifting that hip up, those hips up, pressing the feet into the ground. And hold that for a few breaths. Usually if I'm teaching, we'll hold it for about 5 breaths. Okay, now one other option is to extend the leg, so you can either start with your knees bent or bring your legs down like you're in Shavasana and then slowly slide the heel in. Nice and easy, and then slide it back out. You kind of want a non-stick surface, maybe laying on your floor. If you're doing this, you can see the mat's kind of sticky, stopping me from having that nice slide. So same thing, both sides, nice and slow. That was a little fast that I demonstrated, but just moving that, strengthening that knee. So there you go. That's a few options. I try to keep it short and sweet. I know when these instructional videos get a little too long, then you kind of overlook them. So this is meant, again, to be broken up, used however it works for you. There's obviously a lot more things we can do for our knee. These are just some options to add in. So find what works for you, incorporate it however it works for you. One disclaimer, whenever you're working with a joint or an injury or anything like that, make sure you have permission from your doctor to be doing the things that you're doing. Don't jump into a yoga class just because you've heard it's good for knees. You may need a little bit of rehab before you can get there, a little bit of therapy. There's all different types of yoga. Also, some are going to be wonderful for knees, some are not going to be so great. So that's what I have for you today. And again, it's very individualized. Let me know if you have questions. I can help focus on a sequence specific for you or help you build a sequence that you could do each day, incorporating these different things into it and also keeping your knees safe. Thank you. Have a wonderful day and namaste.